Let's make it unforgettable, Lara said, her eyes sparkling with the kind of excitement that's contagious. We were sprawled on the couch, our laptops open to a collage of Paris images, each one more enchanting than the last. Paris will be perfect, I agreed, imagining us wandering hand in hand along the Seine, stealing kisses beneath the Eiffel Tower. Little did I know, unforgettable was an understatement for what awaited us. Our arrival in Paris was like stepping into a dream. The city's charm enveloped us immediately, with Lara capturing every moment on her phone, her laughter the perfect soundtrack to our beginning. That first night, dining within view of the Eiffel Tower's twinkling lights, felt like a promise of endless possibilities. Love, I thought, couldn't get more picturesque than this. But then, the picture started to crack. Lara's phone became a constant presence, her attention split between me and whoever was on the other end of her frequent texts. Just chatting with my sister about our trip, she said with a casual shrug whenever I asked. Yet, the laughter that followed each message seemed disconnected from our shared joy, planting seeds of doubt in my mind. The real blow came unexpectedly. While Lara showered one morning, her phone lit up with a notification that caught my eye, a message adorned with flirty emojis from a number I didn't recognize. Curiosity overruled trust, and I found myself staring at a screen that held words far removed from innocent catch-ups. Confrontation was inevitable. "Who's this?" I asked, holding up her phone as she came back into the room, wrapped in a towel. Her face fell, then morphed into a mask of indignation. "An old friend," she snapped, snatching the phone from my grasp. "Can I talk to other people now?" But her words did little to quell the storm brewing within me. Something didn't add up, and the trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship began to erode. I found myself observing Lara with a vigilance I detested, each innocent glance at her phone now a potential clue in a case I never wanted to solve. Our honeymoon in Paris, envisioned as a celebration of our love, had morphed into a surveillance mission. With every text, every secretive smile Lara directed at her phone, the distance between us grew. Unbeknownst to her, I had started down a path that would lead us far from the romantic escapades we had dreamed of, into a reality where love was overshadowed by suspicion and betrayal. The morning Lara said she wanted to visit Montmartre alone, something in her tone set off alarms in my head. "I just need some me time, to really soak in the art, you know?" she explained, avoiding my gaze. It didn't sit right. We were on our honeymoon, yet she wanted space? I nodded, pretending to understand, while my mind raced with suspicion. As she left, claiming a day dedicated to self-discovery, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her solo adventure. Decision made, I followed her at a distance, a stone in my stomach growing heavier with each step. Montmartre was bustling, alive with artists and tourists, but my focus was laser-sharp on Lara. She seemed aimless at first, wandering among the street artists, until she didn't. Her steps became purposeful as she approached a quaint Kafka copyright, and there he was, a man waiting with anticipation. Their greeting was too familiar, too intimate for a mere acquaintance. Hiding behind a newspaper, my heart pounded as I watched them, disbelief and anger intertwining with every whispered word and shared laugh. The evidence was right there, in their easy touches and stolen kisses, shattering any doubts about Lara's infidelity. I couldn't just watch. I needed proof. Shaking, I captured their betrayal on my phone, the clicks of the camera echoing the cracks in my heart. Back at the hotel, the confrontation was inevitable. "How could you?" I demanded, throwing the photos in front of her. The room was thick with tension, her eyes widening in shock, then guilt. "Mike, I can explain," she stuttered, but excuses fell flat against the cold, hard evidence. Lara's confession came in a flood of tears and apologies. "It was a mistake," she cried. A moment of weakness, but no words could mend what had been broken. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too fresh. "I can't stay here," I said, voice hollow. The decision was swift, propelled by a mix of heartbreak and the need to escape the nightmare my honeymoon had become. I booked the next flight home, leaving Lara behind in the city of love that had turned into the backdrop of our undoing. Walking away from her, from us, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But as the Paris skyline faded into the distance, I knew it was the only way forward. Alone, I faced the uncertain journey back home, the weight of betrayal heavy in my heart, but with a resolve to rebuild from the ashes of a love lost. The moment I stepped off the plane, the weight of betrayal and a broken heart heavy on my shoulders, I knew the return to our small hometown was the beginning of a long, solitary journey. My friends, though, rallied around me like a protective shield, their supportive balm to the gaping wound Lara had left in my life. "You'll get through this, Mike," they assured me, their presence a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this mess. Lara's messages began flooding in almost immediately, each one a desperate plea for forgiveness. "Mike, please, we can work through this. I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose you," one text read. Emails, voicemails, endless attempts at reconciliation bombarded me, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The images of her with another man were etched too deeply in my memory, a stark contrast to the vows of fidelity we had exchanged not so long ago. Turning my back on her pleas, I focused on rebuilding the life I thought we were building together. The pain of her betrayal was a constant companion, but with each passing day, it became a bit more bearable, thanks in no small part to the people who stood by me. The decision to initiate divorce proceedings was not one I took lightly, but it was necessary. Citing infidelity as the primary cause, I filled out the paperwork with a heavy heart, the finality of the act closing a chapter one had once believed would have a very different ending. Word of the affair and our disastrous honeymoon spread like wildfire through our circles. Lara, once a beloved figure among our friends, became a pariah overnight. The embarrassment and shame of her actions followed her like a shadow, a far cry from the image of us as the perfect couple we had once projected. When Lara returned to our hometown, the cold reception she received was palpable. Mutual friends, once shared confidants, turned their backs, unwilling to associate with the woman who had hurt one of their own. It was a stark reminder of the consequences of her actions, not just on our marriage but on the fabric of our shared lives. Months later, in a twist of fate or perhaps just a small-town inevitability, I ran into Lara at a local cafe. The awkwardness of the encounter was suffocating, time seeming to stand still as we stood there, the chasm between us wider than ever. "Mike," she started, her voice a mixture of hope and apprehension. I cut her off, not ready to reopen old wounds. "Lara," I said, my tone polite but distant. The conversation that followed was brief, the air filled with unsaid words and regrets. As I walked away, I realized that while the encounter had reopened some wounds, it also reaffirmed my decision to move forward, away from the pain and towards a new beginning, however uncertain it might be. The day Lara decided to flaunt her new relationship in my face was the day I realized how far I'd come from the wreckage of our marriage. "You remember Mark, from Paris," she said, her voice dripping with a mixture of pride and defiance, as if daring me to react. But the truth was, I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, just a detached curiosity about how low she was willing to stoop to get out of me. "I'm happy for you, Lara," I replied, my indifference genuine. I had moved on, focusing on my own growth, diving into hobbies I'd neglected and strengthening friendships I'd previously taken for granted. Lara's attempts to make me jealous only highlighted how much I had healed and how little her actions affected me now. But soon, whispers of trouble in paradise reached me. Mark, the man she left me for, had a questionable past, rumors of shady dealings and a temper that could turn violent. It wasn't long before Lara, once the perpetrator of my heartache, became a victim of her own choices. She reached out to me, desperation tinging her voice as she recounted incidents of Mark's true nature. "Mike, I need help," she pleaded, hoping perhaps for the protector in me to override the scars she'd inflicted. I listened, my heart heavy with a mix of pity and resolve, but I refused to intervene. "Lara, you made your choice. It's not my place to fix this for you," I said, my words firm. It was a harsh truth, but one she needed to face. My priority was my own well-being and that of the people who stood by me when I was in the depths of despair. As Lara's life with Mark spiraled out of control, becoming fodder for local gossip, I found solace in a new relationship. Sarah, with her unwavering kindness and understanding, showed me what a healthy, supportive partnership could be. Together, we built a life filled with mutual respect and love, a stark contrast to the volatile and hurtful relationship I had with Lara. Watching Lara's descent from afar, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sorrow for the path she chose. Yet, it was a constant reminder of the bullet I dodged. With Sarah, I found happiness and stability, a testament to the saying that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us directly to the best things that will ever happen to us. The moment Lara stood in front of me in the middle of the crowded town square, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and desperation. I knew this confrontation was inevitable. "You've ruined my life, Mike," she exclaimed, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. The public setting, the gathered crowd, it all felt like a scene from a movie I never wanted to star in. I remained calm, understanding that her pain, although misdirected, was real. "Laura, I didn't ruin your life. We made choices that led us here," I replied, my voice steady, trying to diffuse the tension that crackled in the air like electricity. The community's reaction was immediate and supportive. Friends and acquaintances who had watched the drama unfold over the past months rallied around me, their words and actions a testament to their belief in my character and resilience. It was a humbling reminder that I wasn't alone, that the fabric of our small town was woven with stronger bonds than I'd realized. But Lara's spiral didn't end with our public confrontation. Her relationship with Mark, already hanging by a thread, unraveled further, leading to legal troubles that made headlines in our local newspaper. Their erratic behavior and past deeds had caught up with them, painting a grim picture of the future that awaited them. In the quiet moments that followed, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this point. Despite the pain and betrayal, I was grateful for the lessons learned and the strength I discovered within myself. It was a hard-won wisdom, one that came with its own scars, but invaluable nonetheless. Then, one evening, Lara appeared at my doorstep, uninvited and unexpected, her eyes searching mine for a flicker of hope. "Mike, can we not start over? I know I've made mistakes, but I changed," she pleaded, her voice a soft whisper of her former confidence. But standing there, with the door between us both literally and metaphorically, I knew that some bridges were meant to remain burned. "Lara, I've moved on. I wish you the best, I truly do, but it's time for both of us to close this chapter for good," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. As I closed the door, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. It wasn't born out of malice or bitterness, but from an understanding that some stories don't have the endings we envision for them, and that's okay. The future was unwritten, and for the first time in a long while, I was ready to see where it would lead, free from the shadows of the past. The day Lara left town was the day the entire saga felt like it finally began to close. I heard through the grapevine that she was seeking a fresh start somewhere new, somewhere far from the memories and mistakes that had defined her recent life. It was a move I respected, acknowledging silently to myself that everyone deserved the chance to try again, even if our paths would never cross in the same way. Not long after, life took a turn for the better for me in a way I hadn't anticipated so soon. I got engaged to Sarah, the woman who had shown me what it means to be truly supported and loved. Our engagement party was a celebration of new beginnings, surrounded by friends and family who had been my rock through the stormiest times. Amidst the joy, an unexpected letter arrived from Lara. It was an apology, a lone, heartfelt attempt at making amends for the hurt she had caused. I stared at the envelope for a long time, memories of our past flooding back. But with a deep breath, I set it aside, choosing not to open it. My future was with Sarah now, and dwelling on the past, no matter how sincere the apology, wouldn't change the journey I had embarked on. As Sarah and I began planning our wedding, we were mindful to keep it a private and intimate affair. We wanted our special day to be a reflection of us, free from the shadows of my past marriage. It was important that we start this new chapter on our terms, focusing on the love and respect that had brought us together. Meanwhile, whispers of Lara's continued struggles reached me occasionally. It was clear she was still trying to find her footing, her departure from our town not the instant remedy to her troubles she might have hoped for. There were moments of sympathy from some in the community, a recognition of the complex web of choices and consequences we all navigate. Yet, the opinions varied widely, with others maintaining a critical view of her actions and their impact on those around her. The community's reflection on the entire ordeal was a mixed bag of emotions and judgments, a mirror to the complexities of human relationships and the paths we choose. It was a reminder that while some stories may fade into the background, the lessons they teach us about forgiveness, resilience, and moving forward remain indelibly etched in our lives. As Sarah and I moved closer to our wedding day, I found myself grateful for the journey that had brought me here. It was a path marked by pain and healing, but ultimately, it led me to a love that was strong, true, and unwavering. In the quiet moments, I wished Lara well in her journey, hoping she too would find the peace and happiness she was searching for. Our stories had diverged, but in the end, We were both seeking the same thing, a chance to start anew, to love and be loved in the way we truly deserved. The moment Sarah and I said, "I do," surrounded by those we love, was the moment I truly understood what it means to start anew. The air was filled with a sense of joy and possibility, a far cry from the tumultuous journey that led me to this point. Our wedding wasn't just a celebration of our union. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the possibility of finding happiness after heartbreak. In the quiet aftermath of our vows, I learned Laura had been doing some soul-searching of her own. Alone, she faced the harsh truths of her actions, the realization of the pain she had caused not just to me but to herself as well. It was a sobering acknowledgement, one that spurred her on a path toward personal growth. Hearing about her enrollment in therapy and her commitment to self-improvement, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Despite everything, I wished her well. Healing, I had learned, was not just about moving on but also about hoping others find their way too. As my life with Sarah began to flourish, so too did my career. Opportunities I'd never dreamed of started to present themselves, each new challenge a chance to grow and prove my worth. It was as if the universe was rewarding me for the trials I'd endured, a tangible sign that from the deepest lows can come the highest highs. Laura, in her journey toward redemption, reached out to our mutual friends. Her attempts to mend bridges were met with mixed reactions. Some, appreciating the sincerity in her efforts, cautiously opened the door to reconciliation. Others, still wary of the past, chose to keep their distance. It was a stark reminder of the long shadow our actions cast, of the delicate balance between forgiveness and self-preservation. But Laura was undeterred. She embarked on a new career path, one aimed at making a positive impact in the world. It was a bold step, an attempt to redefine her identity and purpose. From afar, I admired her resilience, her refusal to be defined by her mistakes. In the end, the final lesson for both of us was clear. We are all works in progress, navigating the complexities of life with the hope of becoming better versions of ourselves. Our paths, once so intimately intertwined, have diverged, each leading us to our own versions of redemption and fulfillment. Actions, we learned, have consequences, but they also pave the way for growth, for change, and ultimately, for new beginnings. As I looked to the future, hand in hand with Sarah, I was grateful for the journey that brought me here, for the lessons learned and the strength gained. And for Laura, wherever her path might lead, I hoped for nothing but the best. I, 26 male, was at my family reunion when I saw her, 23 female, for the first time. She was helping my stepbrother escort my grandmother to one of the picnic tables where she could sit down. I watched this woman talk and laugh with them for a while. I didn't know who she was or why she was at my family reunion, but I hoped she wasn't related to me. She had curly hair that draped her feminine shoulders. She played a few games of volleyball with me and my siblings, cousins, and one uncle. I introduced myself afterward, and she told me her name was Maureen. She worked as a nurse aide for the elderly in the area, and my grandma was one of her clients. My grandma asked Maureen to change her schedule this week just so she could attend the reunion, and she did. This woman appeared to be so caring and genuine. She was active, smart, helpful, caring, beautiful, all the things I wanted in my future spouse. Maureen admitted she was eager to meet the rest of her family because she told her a lot about us. She smiled and tucked her hair behind her ear. That's when I asked her to dinner the following Thursday, and she happily accepted. During this time, I was attending the same tech school as my brother and cousin. My fiancé copyright hung out with the three of us a lot. They teased me about us being inseparable, but I was so happy I didn't care. After dating for 2 years, I bought a ring and planned a surprise party to propose to her. One random night, my grandma called her and asked her to come over because she was feeling sad and alone. Of course, she showed up, walked in, turned on the lights, and found my family, mixed with some of hers, standing around us. I was down on one knee proposing. She said yes, so we celebrated and started planning our happy-go-lucky Irish wedding. My fiancé copyright put a lot of her own finances into the arrangements, which made me feel good. I felt like she was serious about me and our permanent future together. She continued working during this time, but it wasn't until about 5 months before the wedding that she started coming home late. When I asked her why, she blamed her old man client, calling him stubborn. One morning, I got to work and realized my phone hadn't been charging overnight for some reason. I didn't have a charger with me, so I just texted my soon-to-be wife to let her know my phone was going to die, but that she could contact me via email or calling the office. My phone died before she replied. I didn't hear from her at all, so I just worked through the day as normal. When I pulled up to the house, I saw my stepbrother's car. He was loading an 8-foot ladder into the back seat. He told me the ceiling fan fell down in our dining room today, so Maureen called to have him replace it. She was sweeping the kitchen when I walked in, and she was relieved to see me. She said it nearly hit her when it fell, and she was glad my brother knew how to install the new one because it was way over her head, no pun intended. Life was pretty great, and all was well until the week before the wedding. My fiancée copywriter had told me she planned to take off work for 6 weeks. Some paid vacation, some not, and her time off was to start the Monday before the wedding. When that day came, her alarm went off at 6 a.m. She started getting ready for work, and I asked her why. She quickly and abruptly told me that she simply couldn't take off work from her elderly male client, who couldn't function without her. Her boss had failed to find any employees willing to take that shift, so she couldn't in good conscience leave him alone. I was extremely upset, but I couldn't express it because her reasoning was so selfless. I accepted it, but I told her I hoped she wouldn't be home late. It was bad enough I was going to miss time with her. The wedding was on Saturday. She supposedly worked until Friday morning, the day before our wedding. On this day, she told me she didn't have to work, and she was going to have a bachelorette party. This was completely out of the blue. As far as I knew, she didn't have any friends that she saw in person. She was a responsible working lady that has been committed to me and living with me for almost 3 years. She never mentioned hanging out with a friend in all that time. We only ever did stuff together or with family. I asked her who was hosting it, and she said a girl's name. To my surprise, she was friends with this girl on social media. I asked her how long she'd been planning this, and she told me it was just that morning that her friend called her and suggested it, along with an apology for not thinking of it sooner. This was all so strange. I asked for her friend's phone number, or if I could see her phone, but my would-be wife refused. She said after all this time, I could trust her to be worthy of the wife title. She didn't look me in the eye when she said it. She was putting her phone in her purse and heading out the door, reassuring me that she wouldn't do anything to justify our relationship. Not after putting so much money into the wedding. I didn't like that was her reason for not doing anything stupid. She didn't say it was because she loved me, and I didn't hear from her for hours. I had a feeling that something terrible was happening, and I needed help to figure it out. I drove to my stepbrother's house. You can't imagine how sick I felt when I saw my wife's car parked next to his. All was quiet when I pulled up. The doors were locked, but the glass sliding door to the bedroom had gaps in the blinds. I could clearly see them having sex. I started pounding on the glass, yelling at them. They heard and saw me right away. My brother just kept cussing and trying to get his robe on. My not-so-trustworthy fiancé slid off the bed to hide behind it on the floor, taking the blanket with her. He finally let me in because he didn't feel like he had a choice. I punched him square on the jaw. He twisted and fell back, crashing on the end table. My fiancé called me crazy, saying I wouldn't get away with attacking him in his own home. I called her a few choice words and said if she was worth anything, she wouldn't be here doing this. She was nothing but a 304 that didn't deserve a husband. She had the nerve to say that she only started talking to my brother because I was boring. I quickly put up a wall within my mind. I didn't need to hear what this girl thought of me. The truth was that she started looking at him the same day she met me, and she was probably seeing him behind my back for at least several months. She was a dishonest waste of space and time who didn't know which man she wanted, so she was dumb enough to lie and sleep with both. Since before the ceiling fan incident, my stepbrother and I hadn't communicated. I was just busy with work and wedding planning and didn't think much of him. Little did I know that during that time, my fiancée was telling him that she was having doubts about the wedding and lied about moving back in with her parents. He told me this as soon as we made eye contact. I immediately yelled back, asking him why he didn't try to reach out to me and chose to start sleeping with my fiancée instead. He said he couldn't tell me how sorry he was that he was a careless moron. Before stepping outside, he screamed at my fiancée that she lied to him. She told me that he was the one lying, and that he actually tried to seduce her on the night she called him about the ceiling fan. I realized at this point that the wedding we had planned for tomorrow wasn't happening, our relationship was done, and I didn't have to listen to any of this. As I left, she called my name 9 times. I wondered if that was how many times she slept with him behind my back. I went home and added locks to the inside of the doors. I paid for this place, and I was relieved I didn't have to divorce her and fight for it in court. I put all her stuff outside the window, and figured if she wanted it, she'd grab it before it rained. She showed up, shocked to find that she couldn't unlock the door with her key. She started kicking the door, and actually broke a window before realizing her stuff was sitting outside already. I called the police, and she was charged with criminal mischief, since she was seen on the security camera furiously throwing the porch chair into the window. Even before the dust settled, she tried convincing my stepbrother to let her move in. He refused. I knew she deeply regretted her life choices at this point. She just spent at least $3,000 on wedding arrangements, even though she wasn't fully committed to me. She left me 7 voicemails within 3 months, full of remorse and sniffles. I heard from my grandma that she was fired from her job, although I can only assume it was because of the criminal mischief charge. I know she cared about her job, and I can't imagine she'd be mentally okay after this. I don't know where she went, but I don't feel like I'll be running into her at the grocery store anytime soon. Opie, I am so sorry your fiancée copyright falsely presented herself as a woman worth committing to. Try to find a woman who's willing to largely give up social media. It is nothing but an addiction that leads into a dissatisfied, selfish, egotistical mindset that will never end, thanks to the support and attention they receive, even if they're in the wrong. Using your own logic is the best thing you can do when dealing with your future girlfriends. Try to communicate as reasonably as you can, and if she doesn't let your perspective sink in, or take accountability when she screws up, end the relationship and find someone else. She didn't show any blatantly obvious signs of infidelity, and you only caught her by chance, which is why it's such a gamble to date during this time. Thank you for sharing your story. Now for our next story. My girlfriend and I were together for almost 6 years. I, 29 male, met my girlfriend, 31 female, at Walmart. We were both single, without kids, in the fast checkout. She was short $20 for her stuff because her debit card had a hold on her account. I overheard the situation, so I paid for it. She was so embarrassed and thankful to me, she asked me for my contact information so she could pay me back. When she texted me a few days later, she asked me how I could receive an electronic transfer. I told her I'd rather see her in person and treat her to her favorite beverage. It worked like a charm. We met at a bubble tea shop and talked for hours. Something about her made me feel like I could trust her and tell her my innermost thoughts. We bonded as if it was what nature intended. She helped me to get through my father's untimely death and made sure I stayed in the present moment. I never knew how great it was to have a long-term romantic relationship before I met her. She was my first for a lot of things. She was a caseworker for a non-profit organization for battered women, and she was living with her mom, who was also hurt in the past. This might have played a part in her distrusting perspective that she had yet to show me. When I asked her to move in with me, she ghosted me for weeks. It was really shocking because we went from talking every day for a year and a half to nothing. I felt sick, like I did something drastically wrong and wasted my time and energy. When she showed up, she brought me flowers and apologized. She said she was so scared to move in with a man because her career was filled with troubling relationship stories. Women who had to get away from bad men. She became thankful that she never found herself in that situation, but now she was about to take a chance with me. I told her I got why she was worried, but we could take it one day at a time. Up till this point in our relationship, there was no reason for her to be afraid. We lived together for 4 years, so at this point we'd been together for over 5 years. I was certain she was the woman for me. She, on the other hand, was changing. Over the course of time, she became very relaxed while living with me. She let her guard down and started doing stuff she never did before, like eating junk food every night. It was a bad habit, and after the first 3 days, I said something to her. I was nice about it. I just warned her that I'd only been able to stay fit and healthy to this point in my life because I avoided junk food like the plague and only ate within a certain time frame each day. With her mouth full of chips, she glared at me. She said she didn't want to be parented by me. I was surprised she took it so critically. What's the point in having a spouse if they can't help you with their own advice and experiences? I told her that, but she said I just have to trust her to do what's right for herself and love her unconditionally. I didn't like that. It was like she was writing herself a get-out-of-jail-free card. She continued eating like this and gained 30 pounds in 3 months. I continued to love her, but I started suggesting every day that we go to the gym together or go for a long walk around the neighborhood. She told me she didn't feel like it after working all day or week and eventually snapped and told me to stop asking. She reminded me that I wasn't her parent. Then she went on a rant about how she found more support on Reddit for her body type than I'd ever given her. I told her I still loved her and wouldn't give up on her well-being just because she wanted me to. She plumped in her dead phone, waited for a few minutes, then went to the bathroom. When her phone came back on, I opened it. She had apps I didn't know she had. I clicked on one, which was a dating app, and found messages between her and several other men. At least 8. All of them telling her how beautiful she was and how they'd sleep with her if they ever got the chance. I got so sick to my stomach that I ran to the kitchen sink. Before she was done in the bathroom, I went back to her phone and kept reading. She sent pictures to multiple men whenever they'd asked for it. I took screenshots, but I didn't have time to send them to myself because she came out of the bathroom and demanded to know why I was on her phone. I told her to get out of my house. I was fuming and started recording this exchange on my phone. I had planned to keep the screenshots and play dumb for a while, but I realized there was no point in that since we weren't married and I owned the house. I had to remove her like she was a growing tumor. I told her if it wasn't for her disrespectful and unwilling attitude, I would have given her a chance, but it was clear that she did not care about me or our relationship. I told her the names of some of the men she was talking to on her phone and that I considered what she did to be cheating. When she realized how serious I was, she stared at me like an innocent deer in the headlights. She calmly walked over to my 4 pounds, unplugged it, and carried it to the window. She looked at me and dared me to keep messing with her. I told her I wasn't messing and that if she destroyed my console, she'd have to pay for it in court. She thought about it with her eyes locked on mine. While holding it out the window with one hand, she used her phone to call her mom. As soon as she started whining and crying to her, I tried to grab the 4 pounds out of her hand and she dropped it. Unbelievably, luck was on my side. There was an old trampoline in the backyard, put there by the neighbor who planned on throwing it away. The 4 pounds bounced a little but was fine. My girlfriend started accusing me of attacking her while she was on the phone with her mom. This is why it's so important to have cameras inside the house. There was evidence that I didn't touch her and I had to show it to the police when her mom filed a report against me. She was acting like a child. Instead of the grown woman I thought she was when I asked her to move in with me. That night, her mom came to get her, angry with me for something I never did. I got all her stuff to the front door for them. I was just glad to be rid of her. The police report was a little nerve-wracking because I'd heard stories about women that falsely accused their spouse and got them arrested, but I didn't do anything wrong and that didn't happen to me. This immature girl went back to living with her mother, who feeds her ego and selfishness. She quit her job helping other women, claiming it was because she'd been through it. This girl had no idea she became the terrible person she believed me and other people were. She had a man that truly cared about her and she turned it into a nightmare that it never had to be. Opie, you seriously dodged a bullet with this girl. Even though she wasted years of your time, you didn't marry her or have kids, she didn't take all your money and assets, and she didn't get you thrown into jail for something you didn't do. It is important in today's society to be cautious when it comes to finding someone to commit to. A lot of people don't show their true selves until they feel comfortable enough or like they would be able to control the situation following their poor behavior. This is a behavior that is everywhere today, and a lot of people don't even realize they're doing it. They think there's bigger and better options out there, no matter how they take care of themselves or what choices they make. I'm glad you got out of that situation and thank you for sharing with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share